So I'm really excited about this one. I'd never seen this one before today. I found it this morning, so I've done a bit of research on it, and it's called the Amethyst Deceiver. Now the Latin name is Lacaria amethystina, or amethystia, and as you can see, it's like bright purple, like the cap is basically glowing. It's got this light kind of emanating from it. It's crazy. Now, this mushroom's actually mycorrhizal with hardwoods, with oak and beech, basically meaning that the mycelium of the mushroom is having a symbiotic relationship with the roots of the tree. Now, it grows, pretty much just grows in the northern hemisphere. It grows throughout Europe, and it does grow in the US, but it looks as though, from what I've read earlier, that it's mostly found east of the Rocky Mountains. Now the color of this mushroom does tend to fade a bit when it gets older. I can show you some of the older ones in a moment. But you know, the cap is basically quite convex, as you can see, but as it gets older it kind of raises up at the edges and becomes a bit flatter, and then it gets this kind of indented kind of depression at the middle of the cap. Now the stems are pretty much getting a bit wider down at the base, and you can see like it's all kind of scaly and like almost like hairy. Now I looked up some of the medicinal properties of this mushroom to see if it had any, because it's totally edible. It's absolutely edible. It looks like it should be kind of poisonous or at least psychoactive, but it's neither of those. It's totally safe to consume. Now it has a ridiculously high antioxidant content, which I guess is a dead giveaway really, because of the very vibrant color and this kind of light that's coming out of it. And it's very rich in flavonoids. It's, again, like so many other medicinal mushrooms, very rich in ergosterol, which is the pro-vitamin D2. Now it's been shown in studies to significantly lower excessively high blood sugar, and it's very effective as well at chelating heavy metals. Now the light, or the kind of luminous glow that is coming off the cap of this mushroom, is definitely not light reflecting off the cap. It's a kind of glow that is being emitted from the cap, this kind of pinky purpley glow that's inside it. It's crazy. I've never seen anything like that before. Now, this is the only mushroom I found that is doing that, is behaving in that way. This is pretty much the youngest one I found with the deepest purple colour, but you know, all the other ones I found have pretty much been older to varying degrees, and they do get less vibrant in their colour. They do appear to be more dense and a bit kind of thicker in their texture, and they definitely don't have this kind of light emitting property to them, but this is just absolutely amazing. So as I said, it's totally edible, but pretty much all of that research that I just quoted is based upon ethanolic and hot water extract, so just dual extracts with hot water and alcohol. But I'll show you some of the older specimens of this mushroom so you can kind of see how the shape changes and how the color actually begins to fade. It does still have a very faint kind of lilac color to it, but it definitely gets a lot paler, which I think is why it was called the Amethyst Deceiver. Amethyst obviously being that kind of deep purple colored gemstone, and how this mushroom's a deceiver in the sense that it can be quite difficult to identify as it gets older if all you can see are the older specimens, because it really doesn't have that same kind of color or shape to it anymore. But anyway, let's have a look at some of the older ones. So here's another one that's still fairly young, perhaps a little bit older than that first one we looked at, but it still maintains something of a purple color. But you can see the cap is looking kind of almost a bit more dense now. It is gradually getting paler, and it's not kind of radiating that kind of luminosity that was coming out of the cap of the first mushroom that we looked at. And then if you move across, you can see one that is older still, getting more and more pale, looking more dense, and you can see the indentation at the center of the cap beginning to form. And then over here, there's even older ones. that are really starting to become very pale, but you can still see the purple gills where insects have been eating them. You can see the purple gills coming through, but looking very pale. The cap has become a lot flatter, and it's got that kind of that indentation, you know, right in the middle of the cap here. So the published research on these mushrooms doesn't appear to be particularly extensive at all, and I'd love to see more research done on them. I'd love to see more information about what's in them and the kind of effects they can have on us, because something that really interests me is the color purple. Quite often, when it's a natural substance coming into the human body, the color purple often relates to the psyche or the mind or the spirit. Reishi mushroom, a purple reishi mushroom would be a really good example of that, because it has very pronounced Shen qualities and it's very rare. So I'd love to learn more about these mushrooms, and you know, the simple fact that the first one I found was literally luminous. It was it was shining, light was coming out of the cap. I'm totally blown away by that.